What is the UK's definition of terrorism? What are the 5 violent terrorist acts, the 4 terrorist targets, and the 4 terrorist motives in the UK's definition of terrorism? Is attacking a mosque a terrorist attack? Is a mass shooting of students a terrorist attack? Can a person suffering mental health condition and prepares an explosive be considered a terrorist under the UK's definition of terrorism? This is a community legal education presentation. My name's Nasir Hafizi, I'm a solicitor, and here's your 10-point guide to the definition of terrorism contained in Section 1 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Point 1. There is no international agreement on the legal definition of terrorism. That might come as a surprise. Each country has its own legal definition. The UK's legal definition is contained in Section 1 of the Terrorism Act 2000, and it has been described as fit for purpose by some and by critics as long and complex and broad in its indiscriminate criminalisation of particular types of activity. Point 2. Section 1 covers threats of action. So, according to the Crown Prosecution Service, in order to be convicted of a terrorism offence, a person doesn't actually have to commit what could be considered a terrorist attack. Planning, assisting, and even collecting information on how to commit terrorist acts are all crimes under the British terrorism legislation. Point 3. Section 1 refers to 5 types of terrorist violent actions. These 5 terrorist violent acts or threats are: 1. Involves serious violence against the person, or 2. Involves serious damage to property, or 3. Endangers a person's life other than that of the person committing the action, or 4. Creates a serious risk to the health or safety of the public or a section of the public, or 5. Is designed seriously to interfere with or seriously to disrupt an electronic system. Point 4. Section 1 refers to 4 terrorist targets. These 4 terrorist targets are: the use or threat is designed to 1. Influence the government, or 2. An international governmental organisation, or 3. To intimidate the public, or 4. A section of the public. Point 5. Section 1 covers acts and threats by terrorists against any foreign government, not just the UK's government. And it doesn't matter if that foreign government is democratic or dictatorial. So Section 1 criminalises a person who supports the overthrow of dictatorships. Point 6. Section 1 refers to the 4 terrorist motives. Now, the terrorist motivations, objectives or purposes can be based on one or more of the following: that the use or threat of terrorism is made for the purposes of advancing a 1. Political, 2. Religious, 3. Racial, or 4. Ideological cause. So for example, if a person arson attacks a mosque, that is causing serious damage to property, with the design to intimidate a section of the public, in this case some Muslim worshippers, and the person is found to do so because they are motivated for the purposes of advancing a racial or ideological cause, in this case to purify Britain of Muslims, then that person's actions would equate to terrorism, not just a hate crime. Alternatively, a person is not a terrorist according to Section 1 where there is no terrorist motive behind the violence. For example, the act of violence is caused by the perpetrator's mental health, even if their acts were violent or targeted. Or the violence was motivated by personal grievance or profit, or the act of violence was motivated by a desire to cause a mass killing with no apparent terrorist motive, that is, to advance a political, racial, religious or ideological cause. Point 7. If a terrorist uses firearms or explosives, they don't need to have a terrorist target, that is, a change of government or to intimidate the public, as long as the terrorist motivation is present, that is, to advance some political, religious or racial or ideological cause. So for example, if a person travels abroad to take up arms, which involves acts or threats of serious violence against the person to advance a political cause, including to protect a territory from a regime's oppressive acts, this would be covered by Section 1 and deemed terrorism. The terrorist, according to Section 1, does not need to have one of the 4 targets in mind. Point 8. A terrorist act can be anywhere in the world, inside the UK or outside the UK. Point 9. Section 1 can criminalise individuals, groups and states. Point 10. Section 1 is the basis of a whole host of terrorism offences, and some of the most common terrorist offences include Section 1, encouraging acts of terrorism, Section 2, distributing terrorist material, Section 5, preparing for acts of terrorism, Section 58, possessing terrorist material, and some new terrorism offences such as the designated area offence. And if you watch more legal explainer videos, you'll hear more about these particular offences. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Community Legal Education so you can watch more videos in the series and many more. Please donate via Patreon or my funding page. Speak to a solicitor if you need legal advice. And may the justice be with you.